What's driving the auto sector growth in Latin America right now?
Well, I think there was some pent-up demand tied to interest rates. There's been some policy changes regarding tariffs that have allowed more imports of new vehicles. And I think it's availability of Chinese vehicles in a lot of ways that are increasing sales of electric vehicles, but vehicles overall.
And how fast is the EV market actually growing there? And is it the Chinese market that's boosting this industry?
So the EV market is growing, maybe about 1% per year. And last year, 3 to 4% of all vehicles sold were electric. So it's not making up a huge percentage of the market yet, but the numbers were very, very small just a couple of years ago. And if you compare the growth trajectory in Latin America to the United States, it's a much steeper curve. And I think it's driven by availability of vehicles and policy.
And what is it about the Chinese brands that you say are making more of an impact in Latin America? What is it about these brands that are gaining so much traction with consumers?
Well, they seem to be very tapped in. They seem to really understand what the consumers are looking for in a vehicle, and they're developing at a pace that is so much faster than the other automakers that it's making their technology seem like it's years and years ahead. It typically takes an automaker 7 years to go from prototype design decisions about what technology is going to go into the car before it's available. But companies like BYD, they weren't even making vehicles 4 years ago. And so they've been able to bring the latest technology to market in a very short amount of time, and they're selling their electric vehicles at prices that are very, very close to internal combustion vehicles, which makes the decision for consumers a whole lot easier.
We saw Argentina's auto sector come back after years of instability. Which other Latin American countries are winning in the auto investment race?
Well, I think Brazil and Mexico are having a lot of success. And if you just look at market share, Brazil is nearly, it's a little more than 45% of all vehicle sales in Latin America. So where Brazil goes, so does the rest of the market. And Mexico makes over 25% of the market. The rest of the countries make up very small percentages, each of them. They're selling only a few 100,000 vehicles, and it's not enough to drive manufacturer demand, and it's not enough to change infrastructure. So infrastructure is going to have to change in places like Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina first. And then some of the pass-through countries, I think you're going to see infrastructure change with long-haul trucking before it comes to consumers. But the infrastructure is going to have to come before the vehicle sales in a lot of the smaller countries like Colombia.
What's the next big shift to watch in the region's auto industry over the next 5 years, would you say?
Well, I think we're going to be in a period of manufacturer globalization, and manufacturers are going to be going to where the bottlenecks in the supply chain are. And Latin America has a lot of the lithium and other precious metals that are really important in the manufacturing of new vehicles that have a lot of computers and chips and vehicles with batteries. I think you're going to see a shift in how electric vehicles are powered. You'll see hydrogen become a viable fuel source. Look for AEM electrolyzers to reduce the capex and make hydrogen a more viable power source. Grid reliability is going to have to become a big priority for Latin America if they want to see more electric vehicle sales, and at the same time improving roadways and highways. And so if governments make the investments in the infrastructure, then I think you'll see the automakers make the investments in trying to bring more and more vehicles into Latin America. And it's no longer going to be a niche secondary market for some of these automakers. It's going to be a big market for them.
Just briefly, Ryan, given we've seen the US trade war explode earlier this year and continue, what role have tariffs played in the industry in Latin America?
Well, tariffs clearly were preventing more vehicles from being sold in the market by making the cost for consumers unpalatable, and the profit margins for automakers just weren't enough. And so as soon as those tariffs were removed, immediately the vehicle sales started, because you saw dealerships being opened up and you saw companies hiring local sales and marketing staff that were helping these vehicles get to market. The tariffs alone don't change vehicle sales. It's the tariffs plus the investment from the automakers. And you see companies like BYD with their truck that's become, really, really interesting for consumers. You see how cool their showrooms are, and they're making it a product that consumers really want to have.
Ryan, really appreciate your time on the program tonight. Ryan McManus for us there.
Thank you.